I want to begin by thanking you guys for watching my video. If you support my work, please make sure you go into the description of this video and check out my Linktree link. If you click on that link, it'll expand and you can see all different ways that you can support my work financially. Otherwise, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this video and leave me a comment. If you do those things, it really helps me out in the ratings and make sure that YouTube will put me to the front of the list when anybody searches certain topics. So again, if you want to support me financially, click on the Linktree link. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe. All of that helps me out a whole lot. Thanks, and enjoy the video. What's up, everybody? This is D.H. Thorne here. I figured today's video would be something that I might title Back to Work, Back to Basics. And this is going to be a series of videos probably where I discuss some basics of magic that are probably going to be very useful to you guys. You know, I've often toyed around with the idea of doing magical, video courses for people, similar to what other people do, where they're paid courses. And I may still do that for more advanced things, like working with the shadow people and stuff like that. But I think, basic magic should be something that is basically free. Learning how to do the basics is not something that should be a deep secret. I think it's something that is easy to find if you're willing to look for it. And if you're here, that means you're willing to look for it. I've often had a saying where I don't believe that knowledge costs anything. However, the work to acquire it, that's not free. So whatever that may be for you, however you feel that that's valid for you, this particular stuff I feel is something that should be out there and easy to access because it helps dispel some of the myths and problems that we have doing magic in general. So let's get started. So this particular video, I'm going to be talking mostly about the operations of cleansing and charging objects with energy. Now, before I really get into the procedures that I like to use, I want to start off by having a brief discussion of what exactly we mean, what exactly my understanding is of charging an object and cleansing it, and why this matters, and some of the things that go into it, maybe some historical context as well. So first and foremost, what I believe, what I understand, my metaphysic, if you will, about what we're doing when we're charging an object, is we are not actually imparting energy to the physical material object. In other words, there is no energy which is transferring from me to a stone or a piece of jewelry or an idol or anything like that, that is in any way, shape, or form like energy that we would see, say, from a battery or an electrical socket. Now, this flies in the face of what a lot of, other contemporary magicians would probably tell you, especially chaos magicians and such, who like to see magic in a rather scientific way. To me, what I believe is actually going on, what I currently understand, if you understand my particular view on reality being a subjective experience in which the objective world is something we agree upon, not necessarily a firm object that is there and then we observe it. In other words, I don't think reality is a thing which we observe from the outside, that the reality is the thing that's real and we are illusion. I think all of it's illusion, including what we think we are. The only thing that we know for sure is real is our consciousness. And I don't believe that we are solipsistic islands up to ourselves. I've been criticized for that. People don't understand what I'm saying. You're not the only person in the world. There's an endless number of people and things, beyond this world that are conscious and self-aware. It's that consciousness is the only singularity. Consciousness is the source. Consciousness is the thing which everything is made up of. So when I'm charging something, what I'm really doing is, my phone's going off, what I'm really doing is I am charging my mental association with energy. So in other words, when I charge an object, we'll take this pyramid, this pillar here that my wife gave me. If I were to charge this with energy, what I'm really doing is I'm not actually putting anything into this object. This object is part of my subconscious, part of my subjective awareness, but it itself is a manifestation of consciousness. In other words, I only perceive it as real because I separate it from all of this other stuff that is also real. The air around me, the body that I am, the energy from that candle, and all of these things, I separate. That's what the mind does. The mind is like a knife, okay? The mind cuts reality into smaller pieces that it can understand more easily. And in so doing, it creates basically egregores, tulpas, thought forms. So this actually is a blob of stuff which I've encapsulated in my mind as a thought form, which represents this crystal, which is I forget the exact name of it. This wasn't when my wife gave it to me. I think she said it was a it might be a hematite quartz. I'll have to look it up. It was pretty cool. I do enjoy it. It's pretty neat. Really good for root chakra. That much I remember. So I'll have to look it up again. But so I haven't used it much as anything other than an ornament, and I probably won't necessarily be charging it today. But if I was, I'll be showing you the method that I would use. So what am I charging then? If this is not real as a, quartz crystal, if this quartz crystal is really a thought form that exists in my own perception, and in others, other people will agree it's a quartz stone, but their version of it's going to be completely different of mine, even though we'll agree on what it is. In other words, there's a point where your subjective reality overrides anything that anybody else's objective reality will tell you about it. Until you hold this in your hand, you have no idea what it weighs. And even if I told you what it weighs, even if I handed you something that weighs the same, it wouldn't be the same. There's always going to be a fundamental difference between my experience and yours. So what am I charging then, if this doesn't necessarily exist independent in the way that we think? What am I imparting to it? Well, I'm not actually imparting anything to it. What I'm actually doing is in my own subjective reality, my own bubble of space-time, that is my personal timeline, my own personal reality. What I'm actually doing is I am charging the object in that personal sphere. This is why it's so difficult for other people to sense accurately what has been done to an object spiritually, energetically. Sometimes you can. Some people are better at it than others. For some people it's a gift, for some people it's a curse. But for the most part, even people who are sensitive are very inaccurate about it. I've done many tests with this. I've gathered people, way in the past who claim to have great energy sense. A lot of them are fakes, frauds, and scammers, and they really can't sense anything. I've sent objects which I've charged like crazy, and they haven't sensed anything, which made me think, hey, maybe I'm bad at this. Whereas I've sent people objects that have not been charged, and they hoot and holler and roar about how powerful they were when they picked them up. So what's really being charged then is your perception of the object, your own energy body. Think of it this way. If this object exists as it is, only in your conscious awareness, only in your mind world, only in your subjective world, then when I charge this, I'm charging it as an anchor. This is why in Become the Maelstrom I discuss things in terms of anchors. I call things anchor objects because they're conscious anchors. They're anchors for your consciousness. So when I charge this, I am sort of creating we'll call it a mental spiritual link, okay? A subconscious link with this manifestation of quartz that I think it is. So in other words, I'm creating a link to the tulpa, which I think this is, the egregore that I think this is. And I'm charging that with energy. So it's energized in my own conscious field, my own psychic field. When given to someone else, that's again, not to say it won't be charged for them, but what's really acting is my own consciousness. When they pick this up and hold it, if they're sensitive to this energy, what they're probably picking up on then is not the object's energy per se. It is not necessarily this object's independent energy. It's actually me. My connection is what they're picking up. Now, some will say that you can sever that connection then, or that I'm getting it completely wrong and that the object is getting charged like a battery. If that's really the worldview you want to live in, so be it. It will still work for you either way. My personal worldview is when I'm charging this object, I'm not charging the object, I'm charging the tulpa in my mind that this object represents, that is represented by this object, or that the tulpa represents. However you want to phrase that, the thing that's being charged is the idea. This is how all magic works to me. Okay, so it's a little different. It's also a lot more rational. It's a lot easier to pass the sniff test of rationalism, because you're not necessarily doing something that's physical. You're not actually charging this with physical energy necessarily, although that can be part of the process. And we'll get into that in a moment. But what we're really doing is charging our idea of it. That alone, because you are ultimately the thing that manifests what your intentions are. In other words, magic doesn't work independently of you. You are magic. Everything about you is magic. Everything you do is magical. You just don't realize it because you're caught in this mundane, illusionary world that you're in. Reality is everything. Every breath you take, every step you take, everything you do has a magical element to it, because it's all part of Maya. And one of the translated meanings of Maya is magic. Okay, so this exists within you. This object exists within you, and no one else will see it the same way, and that goes for your energy as well. Some people can, to some degree. It does happen. It's just not the same thing as reaching out and picking something up and feeling it. It is something that is intuitive. It is an intuitive understanding that it's charged, and then your body will kind of put in its place a feeling. It'll kind of translate that intuition into a feeling. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you experience, don't fight it. Go with it. That's a beautiful gift. It's not one I really have that strong. You know, if I pick up an object, I don't go, hey, you charge this. It doesn't work for me that way. My magic is way more, we'll say, egocentric, I guess, in the sense that a lot of what I do, I don't, it's not like it's out there in the world. I feel like it's in me, and then I project it both ways. It's projected in and out, okay? There's a projection going on. And it rationalizes that way a lot better, because that means whatever I do doesn't necessarily have to be felt by anybody. It's not something that is meant for everyone. It's actually a higher sense. It's an internal sense. It's a sense of the astral. And the astral is always seen through an internal lens, because ultimately that's where the astral is. It's in all of our internal universe, and we all have our own version of it, and it's still real. It's still there for us. All right, so let's get into it. So for charging an object, usually what you want to do is you want to cleanse that object. Now, cleansing an object there's a million different ways to do it. Depending upon your tradition and belief system, it could be something as simple as saying a prayer over it. It could be something as simple as bathing it in cold running water, either from your tap or from a lake or a river or something, preferably moving water like a river. It could be bathing it in moonlight. It could be putting it out in the sun for a while. Of course, anything you put in the sun, you've got to watch out that it's going to get sun bleached. You don't want that. That'll ruin a lot of things. Even things you wouldn't think be damaged by it will be. It doesn't matter how dark the pigment. Sun bleaching is a thing, okay? It does happen. It doesn't take that long either for some substances. You certainly can't wash everything. Like selenite, you can't run that in water. It'll disintegrate. So certain things can't be treated the same way. So one of the methods that I prefer to use, there's either the mental method, which is I will mentally envision. It's almost like prayer. It's almost like doing a lesser banishing ritual, because that's what it does. You can do an align and clear over it. You can mentally focus on it and visualize the energy being dispersed and touch it and channel it out. You know, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but let's cover the easiest and the one that your subconscious is most likely to pick up on. One of the easiest ways that I've done it growing up, and still to this day, is I will bathe it and fumigate it in sacred smoke, basically incense. Now, some cultures will tell you only real herbal incenses, like actual sage leaves, actual Palo Santo, actual copal wood, all that kind of stuff is the only thing you can use. Whereas others will say any kind of smoke that's been given an offering to a spirit or anything like that will be fine. Or any flavor of incense, for that matter, will be fine. I'm sort of closer to that latter category, because my understanding of incense fumigation is it actually travels back in time to when the ancients discovered that if they fumigated with things with smoke, it would cleanse them. For those of you who know a little bit about outdoor living, if you're sort of into survival stuff and bushcraft, you know that one of the great ways to clean your body and your clothing when you don't have ready access to soap and water as easily is to take smoke baths. Smoke actually has the effect of killing a lot of germs and bacteria. It fumigates you and fragrances you. Smoking meat will make it preserved and it will last a lot longer. So the ancients, just like with salt, salt was discovered to be very similar, which is why salt has a very similar cleansing purification effect. This is why salt is used as a purifying element in your magic. This is why when you have your altar, if you put salt around, either sprinkling it or making patterns in it or having your offering bowl filled with salt, this tends to cleanse it, okay, and purify the energies. Some would say this doesn't work well with demon magic, whereas others say it's perfectly fine because demons aren't evil, and whatever you want to do. Again, this is my point where I keep telling you, everything here is subjective and internal, okay? If you try to make it a tradition that only this way is real, you get into problems where nothing seems to work, because it's just like with Christianity. When people criticize Christianity, which version of Christianity is the right one? Which Christians are going to heaven? Is it the Seventh-day Adventists? Is it the Baptists? Is it the Unitarians? Who's going to heaven, right? In the same sense, let's not get trapped in that same religiosity view. Let's try to understand on a metaphysical level what's really happening, how this is really working. My personal feeling is, and this is why it's going to work for me, is that it's me that's doing it, okay? It's not some universal thing that is true for everybody. The only thing I think is universal, in fact, is that it's individual for each of us. That's the universal truth of it. So for me, using smoke is an effective way, because in my mind, I understand what smoke does. The symbolism of burning incense smoke, be it just regular stick incense or something fancy, is the same. It's smoke, and that tends to purify things. Bugs will leave things. Again, if you understand bushcraft and stuff, you'll know that smoke can drive away insects, can drive away disease and germs. Very good purification agent, especially when you don't have access to a lot of salt. So we're going to use smoke today just as a demonstration, just so there's something to look at while I'm talking. So I got this really nice incense box that I picked up. I really like this. It's a little dirty. I got to clean it out, but I generally don't clean out my incense bowls and things until they're overflowing. I feel like they contain some essence to them. So it's kind of filthy inside. Some people probably do different, but we're going to do it this way. So we're going to light this.